Some black holes aren't way out in space. They're right inside your firm, pulling your team, your energy, and your profit into the void. Let's talk about it on the podcast.
You're listening to Breaking BizDev with John Tyreman and Mark Wainwright. Conversations that break down, beat up, and redefine business development for the professional services firms of tomorrow. And now for your hosts, John and Mark.
Welcome, experts, practitioners, marketers, sales pros, consultants, entrepreneurs to the Breaking BizDev podcast. I'm John, he's Mark, and we're here to talk about all of the different black holes that are devouring your firm and sucking up the most important resource you have, your time. Mark, how are you feeling today?
I'm well. I love how you've taken this black hole thing and just run with it, John. This is good. We're going to talk about all the things that are taking way too much of your time, things that are distracting, things that you're focusing on that you shouldn't be focusing on, that take away your time and your energy and your resources and fail to actually help you improve, grow your business, be successful, all that stuff. So yeah, here we go. Black holes. Okay.
We want to steer clear of these ones.
Yeah.
So just before we dive into our topic du jour today, I just want to remind listeners to follow the show wherever you are listening or watching the podcast. Leave a rating and a review, and fill out our listener survey, which is linked in the show notes.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any particular reason why we've gone into the universe today, John, but it seems like a fun metaphor for discussing all these distractions that are happening both internally and externally in your organization. So sure, what the heck? Let's call them black holes, and we've got ones that kind of range far and wide here. So
yeah, and the only metaphor I could think of, let's make humans multiplanetary, right? Isn't that like Elon Musk's mission?
Oh, here we go.
Anyway, let's not go down that wormhole. But Mark, the first black hole that you came up with was utilization. Why is utilization a black hole?
This sounds so specific and wonky, but if people have spent any time in professional services firms, this is one of the numbers that people talk about. And utilization, just to kind of make sure everybody we're defining this right. This is given 100 hours of time. How what percentage of that are you spending doing billable work, right? So this gets into the minutia of counting minutes and seconds of your life, and if you're doing billable or non-billable work. And it sounds fantastic, particularly for people who look at, boy, if I'm going to be billing more of my time and we're going to be making more money, it sounds really like a great idea, right? But it fails, like the big one that it fails at is determining efficiency. First off, tracking utilization measures activity, not sort of impact or ultimate outcomes, right? It just shows you that everybody's got a full plate of work, a full schedule, but not necessarily that they're working on the right things, or they're not actually advancing projects forward. We're spinning our wheels. So We're measuring time spent, not necessarily client outcomes or value created.
We're measuring how much time is spent, not how the time is used.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so a second one here, and we'll clip through these.
Sure.
Tracking utilization actually punishes efficiency. We mentioned that word earlier, in that throwing hours at something endlessly doesn't necessarily make us be more efficient. People slow down their work in order to stay billable and not actually get things done quickly. And when we think about doing things better and more quickly and more efficiently, we things like process improvement and innovation come to mind. But when we're just sitting there tracking hours, we're actually working in opposition to innovation, process improvement. We're not necessarily finding ways to do things faster and better. We're just making sure that our plates are full.
I've worked with graphic designers who intentionally make sure they fill up certain hours before they share designs, because they don't want to set the precedent that, oh, something can be generated more or less quickly, you know?
And in the world of artificial intelligence these days, there's a ton of opportunities for things to be done a little bit faster and faster here and there.
That's true.
But unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily empty someone's plate, right? They just get more stuff thrown onto their plate. So
Yeah, that's true.
okay, here's another one. Tracking utilization kind of ignores sort of the client experience. High utilization doesn't necessarily mean your clients are happy and satisfied. There's no measurable or recognizable connection between those two things. It doesn't say anything about it's not a measure of trust or interaction or communication or alignment with our clients and their goals. And utilization is completely internal, right? Your clients want you to be focused on them, but here we are focused on our hours, time spent, all that. Your clients want to stay focused on the outcomes, and utilization doesn't necessarily focus on outcomes. It focuses on how busy you are. Tracking utilization distorts decision making.
All right, so what do we mean by this?
Well, we assign people to projects. So and so's not quite busy enough. This person's too busy. We start pushing hours around to keep everybody kind of equally billable, not necessarily in a way that serves clients best, serves the firm best, et cetera. Right. So that tweaks and distorts our decision making. Other types of activities, maybe that are non-billable, marketing, selling, organizational improvement, process improvement, operations, things like that, things that ultimately will benefit your organization internally and the clients, that gets pushed aside in service of keeping utilization rates at a certain level.
I've seen this play out culturally where because there's internal meetings that talk about this and like who's got enough hours, do you have hours to take on this amount of work, right? And then that creates this like culture of billable work is always and always will be more important than non-billable work, when that isn't always the case.
And associated with all that, we end up optimizing our organizations around utilization and not for client service or ultimate sort of efficiency and effectiveness. Another one, tracking utilization can hide or obscure inefficiencies. If we're kind of enslaved to the utilization thing, we aren't necessarily paying attention to, oh, we did poor QC on this, so that we have to rework it. We scope things poorly, so that we're just focused on filling up hours and throwing more and more hours at the job or the project or the client. And it doesn't ultimately serve the client well. It shows how busy we are, not how well we're actually doing the work and serving our clients. The last one that I had written down here, when you lead with utilization, because effectively that's what you do, really pretty early on in this whole sort of consultant-client relationship thing, the hours and time ends up dominating the conversation. So clients don't always necessarily walk into these client-consultant engagements thinking they're just buying time, but eventually that's what they're doing. They're just buying time, right? And they're not really focused on outcomes. No one's really looking at the outcomes clearly enough. And we're overly focused on just talking about how much time we're going to spend on your job, not what ultimately are we achieving and what are we creating together, and what value is the client going to get out of this work together. So, but to move on to the second one, John, and this, we are in all parts of the universe here trying to avoid black holes.
That's right.
This one was an interesting one that you brought up, and it's the black hole number 2, which is meeting bloat.
Yeah. So if we're thinking about time sucks and black holes, meetings are a huge part of that, especially as firms grow. Time is a resource, and time belongs to people, and people working together to solve problems and achieve outcomes for clients. There are going to be a lot of internal meetings that arise in coordinating and collaborating, or at least that's the natural tendency of many firms. And so I was looking into this, and I found some research from this SaaS product called Fellow.ai, which is like a meeting transcription software. But they put out some good research, and it showed that managers, directors, and senior executives spend 30 to 35% of their work week in meetings. So think of like a dozen hours of your week every week is spent in meetings. Another Archie app is another meeting software, but they also did a little bit of research. They found out that the number of meetings has actually tripled since 2020, coinciding with the rise of remote work, using Zoom, conference meetings, things like that. I mean, if we apply the cost of salaries of our employees to these meeting times, this research found that meeting time costs companies on average $30,000 per employee per year. So that's not including the time that's actually spent scheduling and coordinating and prepping for the meetings. That's just the meeting times themselves.
That's crazy. That puts such a sharp point on that. So black holes of meetings have tripled since 2020. That's insane. Not to kind of say the obvious here, but John, from your perspective, why is this such a huge black hole?
Well, I think it's a huge black hole because on some level, the capacity that you have to meet should be focused on your clients and the external marketplace. And actually, in digging into this research, I found that it was internal meetings that caused more of this bloat than external meetings did.
Okay, yeah.
For this, it boils down to a matter of if you have a distributed workforce, then there needs to be a focus on asynchronous communication, right? And so, could this meeting have been an email, right? And that's sort of old adage. So, yeah, I think most meetings are actually they're not really productive. They're more just touch bases and status updates, or it's been on the calendar every week for however many years, and it's just what we do. It's part of our culture. What's the cost of your internal meetings, and how can you lower that? I think that's one black hole that firms could take a look at.
Yeah, there's definitely an opportunity cost. And I will say, just anecdotally from my experience, I think I can be, because I have a reasonable number of meetings with my clients, but the vast majority of the meetings that I have are only 20 or 30 minutes long, which it's still a meeting, but I'm not taking an hour of someone's time every time we get together when it didn't need to be that long. So yeah, I try to keep things really sharp because I know, particularly when I work with practitioners who are trying to learn how to sell, that the time they spend with me is really ultimately not as critical as the time they need to be spending with their clients and prospective clients. So I have to make the effort to shorten the time with me so people can actually be out there having conversations and selling their services. So yeah, that's case in point with me. All right. So the third one here that you put down is the shiny object syndrome.
We've all seen it, the shiny object syndrome. It's prevalent in entrepreneurs, and it's when the shiny object syndrome is when you see something new out there in the marketplace that you think could help solve a business challenge that you have, or if we're thinking about this within the context of firms, but it ends up killing all of your focus and totally derails you. And I found some research from the Digital Marketing Depot, and this was a survey that was done a few years ago in 2022, but I think it's still relevant. This survey looked at sales-led organizations who went through a digital transformation initiative, so changing out some of their software, right? Their digital platforms, mostly their CRMs. That was the kind of the big focus here, CRMs and marketing automation platforms. And they found that 40% of these businesses changed their tech platforms that were less than 2 years old. 2 years. So companies are changing these technology platforms every 2 years. So why is this a black hole?
Yeah.
Well, it's the illusion of productivity, right? We're going to buy a new CRM so that we can be more productive with our sales resources. But if your sales process is not well defined, then a new CRM isn't going to do you any good, right?
Right. So not a silver bullet for sure.
It also it gives you the illusion of leverage. And so that's believing that this new technology and investing in this will solve bad habits too. So it's not like if you don't have the process defined, that's one thing. But if your salespeople are not showing good habits, or if they're not following the process the right way, a new CRM isn't going to help with that.
Right. And it might even work in complete opposition to that, in that if there's a new tool that's introduced, it's complex, it's confusing, there's too many buttons, there's too much.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't get it. And when people get sort of confused and they kind of resort to their sort of default behaviors, which a lot of times are not good behaviors. So yeah, this comes up all the time. And you bring up the CRM systems. There's a lot of technology systems out there that I think people perceive as these big solutions, these silver bullets, right? And there's a ton of them. CRM systems are absolutely one of them. I remember a call I had with a senior most leader in a fairly large professional services firm. And this was kind of really early on. I can't remember if it was pre-contract or post-contract, but it was very early on in the conversation. And I had actually been working with other people in the organization. And I just had a scheduled conversation with this senior most person. I wasn't 30 seconds into the conversation where this person was asking me about the CRM systems. Like, what CRM systems should we buy? I was like, wait a minute, what? You're the number one person in this large professional services. You're talking to me about software?
Yeah.
We need to be focused on something else.
Yeah. And it's not just CRMs either. I mean, it's social scheduling platforms, it's research software. There's all sorts of bells and whistles out there that are these shiny objects that are just drawing us away from what really matters.
So true. And I feel like we're going to loop back to this at least a little bit, because you had another one on your list here that kind of starts bumping into this shiny object thing as well. So,
but we're coming up on a supernova black hole here. So the next one that first of all, we're moving away from these black holes that distract us internally and suck away our time and focus and energy. Now we're going to take a look at some of the black holes that are out there in the marketplace that the clients see as well.
You're listening to Breaking BizDev,
the podcast that beats up, breaks down, and redefines business development for the professional services firms of tomorrow. Your hosts are John Tyreman, founder of Red Cedar Marketing, the podcast marketing company for experts and professional services firms,
and Mark Wainwright, principal consultant and founder of Wainwright Insight, the fractional sales manager and sales consultant to professional services firms.
If you find this podcast helpful, please help us by following the show and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts.
And now, back to the show.
The hourly billing rate. So, Mark, tell us, why is the hourly billing rate a black hole?
Well, this is very close to utilization. These two things are associated, but they are different. And just to differentiate the two, so, hourly billing is we are going to assign a particular dollar amount to this person's time, to an hour of Bob's time, right, is going to be $300. I had an interesting conversation with one of my clients recently, and this topic, there was an email that was flying around that says, so and so should have a $300 billing rate. And then there was an email tennis match going on between everyone saying, oh yeah, absolutely. It was like, oh, clients aren't going to pay that. It's like, oh, so it happens. And this conversation happens a lot, particularly when you're in planning for future years, annual planning, things like that. When you go through this sort of, well, we have to increase our rates, that kind of a thing. So we're talking about assigning a dollar amount to an hour of time, right? So that's what this whole hourly billing thing is. And fatal flaw number one, it ties value to time, not results, right? So again, this is not a radically different conversation from utilization, but they are very, very close. So associates value with time, not results. Clients don't want to buy hours. They want to achieve some outcome. Buying hours says time is the product, not your actual sort of expertise. It's just the time. The faster you work, the less you earn. That's all, like all those things, right, are bad news when it comes to the billable hour. There's another thing that I talk about quite frequently is that it creates this automatic and kind of almost built-in sort of conflict of interest, right? Yeah. Right off the bat, you want to start charging more because you want to throw more hours at something, and maybe rightfully so. But the clients want the exact opposite. They want the polar opposite, right? They want to get what they want to get faster. They want their outcomes faster, and they want you to spend less time on it. So all of a sudden now you're locked into this billable hour thing where the client wants you to spend less and less time on it. The client wants you to be innovative. They want you to be creative. They want you to be efficient. But you don't want those things because that means if you're billing them by the hour and you're spending less time doing it, you're going to make less ultimately. And that's not good. So it creates this friction point. And ultimately, in a client-consultant relationship, any kind of friction starts to erode trust. So that's a problem.
Yeah, it's a major misalignment.
Right. This next one is associated with something I said earlier. Is it penalizes experience, right? So people who are really good at something, who have a reasonably high billing rates, can solve things dramatically faster than others can. But the end result is good for the client. You spend less time doing it, but bad for you because you suddenly made less money. So and you can run your little spreadsheet there and you figure it out. So yeah, if it takes experienced Bob 2 hours to do something that it would take an inexperienced junior staff member 10 hours to do, which do you make more money one way or the other? So it's a conflict. In most other fields and most other industries, mastery and expertise are rewarded. In this situation, when we're talking about the billable hour, they are not. So that kind of caps your growth, which is another point here, is that if you're building your organization based on these sort of building blocks, these bricks like the ones behind you, John, these bricks of the billable hour, how fast can you actually grow that thing? Can you actually scale it? Can you start to 5x or 10x your organization? Can you actually grow that quickly if you're trying to kind of add time that you can then bill, which means you're adding more people and you're adding more costs. So there's the rub there, right? Capture growth. It doesn't let you scale because in order to bill more hours and grow, you have to add more cost. So you don't actually ever scale. You don't double your margin, triple your margin, whatever else. So
you're painting a pretty doom and gloom picture here, Mark.
Yeah, well, that's part. This is a deep, dark black hole, John, and yeah, the analogy fits, right? So I guess the last bad point I want to make about this is that the rest of the world has kind of totally moved on from this, right? I mean, the SaaS companies, manufacturing companies aren't focused on any of this stuff. They're focused on efficiencies and process improvement. And they price by outcomes, not these inputs. So professional services are lagging behind just about all industries out there. So what can we do? Just to put a fine point on this, there's a bunch of things we can do. We can refocus ourselves on the billable hour and time to value and focused on client outcomes, right? Yep. We can rethink pricing models. Instead of just billing hours, we can do just basic straight up fixed fees, retainer models, subscription models, different hybrid models that explore pricing differently, that really show we're focused on outcomes and value, not necessarily just the billable hour.
Yeah. You got to get creative though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the challenge.
You do need to get creative. And this means, unfortunately, rethinking the foundation, right? Because like we said, these billable hours are the foundation. So rethinking this, right? So we need to think about different metrics rather than just, as we touched on earlier, utilization. Let's focus on sort of cycle time or throughput, right? Ooh, throughput is output and flow. Like how quickly are we generating this work and what is the quality of it, and not just time spent. So there's a bunch of different ways that client satisfaction, we can determine our kind of ultimate success focused on the client and their happiness and satisfaction with it. Client retention, other things like that. We can avoid rewarding busyness and have all of our metrics, all of our success indicators focused on clients and client outcomes. Yeah. And hopefully we can start doing some of these small changes now, and we can start to iterate and improve on things as we go, rather than just feeling like we're stuck in the mud. We got to bill the hour. We got to focus on utilization, and some experimentation and innovation need to start happening in firms so that they can figure out their way out of this nasty big black hole. John,
this is a big one. Yep.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned, it's going to take some creativity for firms to kind of step out of that comfort zone of measuring time, because it is easy and readily available and kind of intuitive to take a look at and price that way. But to your point, packaging services in different ways and fixed fees and retainer models, subscription models. Yeah, we've talked about this on many
Yep.
different episodes in the past, but
Yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
big one.
So we've definitely discussed it. We are reskinning it today as a massive black hole, and it is for sure. All right, John, you had a last one listed here, and this is another. Like I said, I think this one is adjacent to the shiny object syndrome. Yeah, but sometimes it's even bigger than that. This one is social media.
Yeah, social media is really a double-edged sword, right? Because on one hand, it's an efficient way to network with your target audience and grow relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, it's a time suck, right? I mean, how many times have, I don't know about, can't speak for you, but I've logged on to LinkedIn to do something, and then lo and behold 10-15 minutes goes by and I'm like, god damn, like where did that time go?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
but it's a major source of business for my firm. So, that's that kind of double-edged sword. So how do you make most effective use of social media? How do you turn it from a black hole into, I don't know, a wormhole to your destination, right?
Yeah.
I did some research and I found this from an Edelman study in 2024. They found that 54% of C-level executives spend an hour or more per week reading thought leadership content on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another stat. According to Hinge Marketing's high growth study, 53% of high growth firms have an active focus on both networking and creating content on social media.
Yeah, so that says to me that there's some eyeballs on it, and it's a worthwhile venture.
It's an investment. It's a worthwhile investment. It's an opportunity, but you need to be aware of the gravitational pull that it has. So what can firms do? I think this is where we talked about focus in the past. And I think focus is a big thing when it comes to social media, maintaining a focus on the task at hand, whether that's prospecting, list building, creating content, researching your target audience, engaging with your target audience. These are all different activities on social media, but being focused on what the task is at hand, I think will help you from getting sucked into the void of the videos in the feed. And there's this 90-90-1 rule, which is kind of common among social media marketing circles.
Wait a minute. Did you say 90? Wait, 99 1.
99-1. I think
Got
we're adding up to 100. But essentially, this is on any given social media platform, 90% of users passively consume content, while 9% of users occasionally create content or engage, and then 1% actively engage in creating content every single day on these platforms.
Yeah.
So that's the breakdown there. And I think for when firms are going through and thinking about social media, do you want to be part of that 90% and have the social media become a gravitational pull and pull you away? Or are you going to be part of that 1 to 10% and actively engage on social media and focus on the tasks that actually move the needle?
Let's wrap it all up here, right? How do we escape the gravitational pull of these massive black holes? We unfocus on these stupid, unimportant, distracting metrics that a lot of times are internally focused, check and check boxes, having too many meetings, utilization, and refocus on what's most important, the right metrics, the right people, our clients, our prospective clients. So unfocus on the things that are unimportant, refocus on the things that are most important. All right, this was fun. There's a lot of time sucks, there's a lot of black holes out there. John, I think this has been a fun one. Thanks for joining me on our discussion about black holes. Until next time.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Breaking BizDev. Subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or listen to the show at breakingbizdev.com. This episode was produced by Red Cedar Marketing. If you think a business podcast is right for your company, visit redcedarmarketing.com to learn more.